Welcome to another episode of Aliyah Money Talks, brought to you by Blue and White Finance. Today, I'm really excited to have a special guest, Becca Fox Regev, right? Hey, Becca.
Yes.
Becca is somebody I worked very closely with, somebody I learned a lot from. Becca's one of the most talented writers that I have had the chance to work with. And I'm very excited to get into this whole discussion about, mastering the high-tech job search, trying to understand how to reinvent yourself a bit. Why don't you start us off, Becca? Tell us a bit about yourself, your Aliyah journey, your work, and we'll take it from there.
Cool. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I made Aliyah now, it's about 5 years ago. I can't believe it. I think I'm losing my Ola Hadasha status now as I approach 5 years. Yeah, and when I got here, I actually moved straight to a moshav outside of Ashdod. So I wasn't yet in the city life in the more fast-paced kind of environment. But ultimately, I realized like Tel Aviv was the place to be to kind of get my career started. And I started working at Ulpan Lanyan, which is actually where we met, as you
Yep.
know. And I was working in like a course coordinating role, opening up classes for Olim, new immigrants, to learn Hebrew. And then I realized it might be necessary to do a bit of a career pivot to get ahead in Israel, which led me to high tech, which ultimately I got into the field of technical writing, which we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the background.
Awesome. You made Aliyah from where? Remind us.
I'm from Connecticut.
Connecticut. Great.
Originally.
So tell us
Yes.
about that process a little bit. How did you rebrand yourself to fit kind of the role you were looking for in high tech? How does somebody who doesn't have high tech experience, how do you get high tech experience when you're not in high tech?
Really good question. And I'll just start with some background that the way I found my current, or it's not my current role, my first high tech role was through a community WhatsApp group. Somebody posted a very vague description of a high tech role. Hey, if you have a writing background and have worked in customer service, this job could be for you. And she advertised it as for one of the big five tech companies in Israel. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I could do that. I have writing experience, and my work at the Ulpan is very customer service oriented. So, like, I guess my first tip is kind of to keep your eyes open, and if something seems like it might be in your realm of experience, to go for it. So that's kind of how I started to think about rebranding. Like, how can I now take my experience I've had and put it into the high tech box. And so another step would be to rewrite your CV, kind of revamp the whole thing. I had a friend who helped me kind of go through line by line and tailor my CV to this job description. So it was also part of like the rebranding. And again, it's kind of like, how can you take what you already have and make it a fit? Um, Other things, I remember like the second thing I did when I was interested in this role was I went out and bought a book on technical writing because I was like, I'm not exactly sure
Study
what
up.
technical
Yeah.
writers, do in their day to day. I know this is something I want to try. So books, mini courses are huge right now. You can learn something about anything. And then I remember connecting with a few professionals in the technical writing world. So this can all help you realize like, okay, what do I need to accumulate in order to fit these roles?
Great. So if we drill down that on a little bit, somebody's working on their CV. What are, I guess, some tips you have about writing a winning CV for the high tech world?
Yes, so this is a big one, and I see so many people sending in their CVs, and I think it's really worth taking the time to to tailor your CV. So the first thing, this is exactly what I just mentioned, what I did with my friend, is we went through and my whole CV got a facelift. Everything, basically, we had the job description open on one side and my CV next to it, and it was like, how can we try to make these a match, right? And
Yeah.
it's still, it's still telling the truth about your experiences, but you really want to tailor it for that specific role. Um, and if you apply to different roles, you might have several different CVs. So what I recommend doing is having the job description open and just really take your experience. And if they ask for X, Y, and Z, give them X, Y, and Z on your CV. Also, big thing to do, adjust the wording and the terminology. So, for example, when I was working at the Ulpan, I remember, we would write email responses and save them to be used over and over again when interacting with customers. In the high tech world, these are called, canned responses, and it's something as a technical writer I do every day as part of my work. But I didn't have the terminology. So if when fixing my CV, you want to actually use the terminology that they use. And also just spelling and grammar should be perfect. There should not be
Yeah.
mistakes on, your CV if you're a native English speaker, especially. And this is more of a personal kind of thing because I work in a bit more of a creative role, but I think it's nice to go on Canva and use one of the templates. They're still very professional, but they
Yeah.
give your CV a different look. And I think if you're a recruiter looking at 100, 200 CVs every day, and all of a sudden you see something with a little pop of color, I think it gets you noticed. I really
You'll
do.
stand out. Yeah. No, makes sense.
Yeah,
No,
that's
those are
important
great
in this,
tips. Yeah. So let me
right?
jump back in here and kind of deal with the elephant in the room a bit. We're recording this in February 2023. Without getting into the politics around the
Right.
judicial reform, everything going on with the economy and interest rates, it's a bit of a tough time for the high tech world. High tech workers are getting layoffs. There are
Yeah.
layoffs happening throughout the high tech sector. There's fear of that continuing. Nobody knows what's happening in the future. But maybe what are
Yeah.
some tips that you can give people in this situation about keeping your skills, your network sharp in the event that you're laid off, in the event that you've already been laid off. Give me some tips around that.
Sure. And again, I haven't had this, experience personally, so I mostly can talk
Yeah,
about from like my friends' experiences and what I've seen on LinkedIn. But I think, by the way, I think LinkedIn is a really good place to start, actually. From what I've seen, like there's incredibly supportive communities and people always saying, if you were laid off, contact me, send me your CV. So I
yeah,
think my first tip would just be to keep your and I think we'll maybe get into LinkedIn a bit later, but keep up to date on your LinkedIn
yeah,
because it really is the best network to connecting with professionals in the field. And I think, if you are in the position where you've been laid off, that's very important to keep
yeah,
up with professionals, keep up with with what's going on in the field. Like, all of this AI, overnight AI became like a sensation.
yeah,
And if you're not keeping up with that, I mean, I myself, I'm like, I only know about this because everybody's been talking about it at work and on LinkedIn. And
right.
if I was going to go and apply to jobs now, I think they might ask me, hey, how do you use AI to make your work easier? And only because of, LinkedIn and again, my colleagues, the professionals in the field, do I know, okay, here's how I use these tools. Here's what these tools are. So keeping up with what's going on, because the world does move so fast now and you don't want to get left behind, due to a layoff. You want to stay on top of these things, even if you're not in the working sphere every day.
Yeah,
And one
makes
other thing, just
yeah,
to always be learning,
yeah,
always be learning something. That's
yeah, for sure.
huge.
That makes sense a lot. So I think many Olim, potential Olim, are listening to this are looking at the high tech sector in general. They're attracted to the salaries, obviously, relative to whatever salary they're earning in the country that they're currently living in. But they're also attracted to the idea of English language, the English language being a skill that's sought after in the high tech world. And somebody making Aliyah may not have that
Right.
confidence around Hebrew yet. Talk about that. Talk about how English can help you in the high tech world.
I think, it's funny because I think actually things are starting to shift around that. I think once upon a time, if you had English, you have job security, you
Okay.
have that's like your golden ticket. And I think I'm not certain, but I think things are starting to shift where it's not enough to just have
Okay.
native English. Um, but that being said, high tech companies work in English, I would say nearly all of them. And this can like open doors for you for sure. But I think on top of that, like you need to have some sort of skill, something like we said, something to stand out. At least, especially like in writing jobs, like, I think a lot of people think if I know English, I can write, or if I know English,
Right.
I can teach English. And I think there is a bit of a shift around that now. So just around this subject, I would say yes, it's super important and it does help you, but it's not necessarily going to get you the job. Like you might want to practice some other skills, get some more on your CV than just native English. And this might be my personal bias, but I think it's really important to know Hebrew too. Because still in a lot of these tech companies, the social
The culture.
aspect
Yeah.
is in Hebrew. And it's important, like, to make you feel a part of things,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah. I think that makes a lot of sense. How important do you think
right?
LinkedIn is to reaching the right people? How can you develop your LinkedIn, strategy to kind of develop these networks and get into the high tech job market? What would you say about that? I know we touched on it briefly, but maybe you have some more tips there.
Yeah, yeah. And I never expected to talk so excitedly about LinkedIn. In university, I like boycotted LinkedIn for a career prep course. I didn't believe in making a LinkedIn. I thought we had too many social media apps, but now I just want to say like I appreciate it and use it as a tool. Honestly, I mean every day. It's really, in my experience, the one place that you can connect with professionals in your field in like and there's I don't know, it's constantly updating. There's constant, articles and even mini courses you can take from LinkedIn. So I just look at it as this like abundance of resources. Um, and not only that, I mean, you can really tailor your LinkedIn just to your field. So I follow all of, what I consider to be like the greatest technical writers or UI UX writers in the field, and I see what they're doing. And that inspires me in my work. I'm like, okay, this is
Yeah.
what the greatest people are doing in the field. And not only that, it really is for networking. So I think it can be intimidating to reach out to people you don't know on LinkedIn, but what I found is like most people are very friendly and open to it,
Yeah.
um, and it's worth a shot. So even if you aren't someone who uses LinkedIn very much, or you're just kind of getting started with it, try it out. Try
Go for it.
posting. Try engaging with people. Comment on other people's posts, um, and and I think getting used to that, um, you'll get a taste for it, I guess, like
Yeah.
for using LinkedIn, and you'll find what's useful there.
Great. So now we've kind of touched on your old arch nemesis LinkedIn, but
Yeah.
let's go beyond LinkedIn. Talk about how you can develop your networks
Yeah,
offline. What are some other channels that you tap into to build an effective network to get your CV noticed in these companies, to get out to people that may be able to, help you find a job in the high tech sector?
sure. And now, like Israel is a small country, So chances are like a friend of a friend has a connection in one of these companies. So what I find is just talking to people, again, it can be intimidating, it can feel weird, but I truly think like anybody can be a resource, anybody can be a connection. So even at
Yeah.
like a Shabbat meal, I've had people say, hey, like you work here, would you be interested in working at this company? If so, like send me your CV after Shabbat. Like people most of the time, especially Olim, are happy to help one another,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if you don't know each other. So just showing up to events, going to the Nefesh B'Nefesh event that you heard about, just to show up and see what's going on, who you might meet there. Another example from the Olim community is I don't know if you know about Helena Baker's English speaking networking group,
Right.
but this is also it's literally
Great
that's the
resource.
point. It's a group of Anglos, yeah, who want to have a network, and it's people from all different fields. And I think that's how you do it. You just have to show up to these
Correct.
events, and sometimes it's exhausting, and we don't want to, but I do believe it works, and I've seen time and time again, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy how small this country is. I mean, I meet so many different people now through Blue and White
Right?
Finance, and it's just like this person is doing this person knows my cousin from here, and this person knows is working in this company, and he just met. I mean, it's like every day you're meeting somebody who is somehow connected in one way or another, which is great. It's a lot of fun, and
Exactly.
I think as somebody making Aliyah, you probably know so many people that are already connected, or know somebody who knows somebody, and take advantage of that. I think
Totally.
that's a really great great idea. So let's say you get that interview. You're ready to you've scheduled the interview. How do you prepare for that interview? What should you be walking in with already kind of in your wallet in your back pocket when you go show up for that interview?
Right. I think from experience, research, research, research. I'm a bit of a fanatic. So first of all, know the company. How many times do people walk in and you know, they haven't done their due diligence of like understanding what the company does, what's the product, this is something I think that recruiters look for. Like, do you know your stuff? Have you done that little bit of that Google search? Because that's going to separate you from someone else. Um, and also, one of my favorite resources that I literally used for every interview I've done, Glassdoor, which is essentially a site. I guess most people maybe use it for salary ranges, but I always go to the interview questions tab and I look and see if I can find my exact role for that company and if there was any interview questions. And it's mostly just to like understand, okay, what am I getting into? And I like to prepare. Um, and again, they might throw something at you that you completely didn't expect, but if you try to be as prepared as possible, it does usually work out. I also like to like Google the top five interview questions for whichever role, for a technical writing role, for example, um, and just have prepared responses. Just like write out what I think I would say to the recruiter or to the interviewer. And that being said, it gets easier after you've done it two, three, five times. You know, once you get into your fifth interview, let's say, the questions start to repeat, and I think your answers, you become stronger, more confident. You know what you're saying. Um, so that's the benefit of going to lots of interviews. It does get easier. And one thing I've noticed more, in my last interview process was asking for feedback. And this isn't something I think we always, are taught to do. But I remember in one interview I went to, I really wanted this role. And then at the end, I was like, I would just love to know, how could somebody like myself get into a role like this? And I got a really long email response with like some amazing tips, like, here's what, we thought was missing. Here's what this role really required. Very, very thoughtful. And then the next interview I had was with my current job at Elementor. And
That
so I
worked.
really feel like that feedback allowed me to know, like, and I got the job. So hey, feedback works.
Very cool. So let's kind of finish on a topic that I think me and you have talked about a lot. It's when we look at the high tech
Yes.
world, it's fast paced, right? It's always moving. It's people never sleep and are working around the clock. And there's a need as somebody going into that world to maintain a healthy lifestyle, right? First of all, Mazal Tov, Nukala. You're in this world. You understand kind of the balance of kind of navigating this. And I know you've put in a lot of thought about this.
Yeah.
Talk about it. Tell me a little bit about how you kind of balance the fast-paced nature, the will to get so many things done quickly, move fast and break things, right? That's the famous thing by Facebook. How do you balance that with a healthy lifestyle and devoting time to your personal life?
Totally. So this is, yeah, as you know, it's a subject near and dear to my heart. Like trying to keep a healthy lifestyle while in the midst of high tech. And, I think actually when I got started in high tech, it was like the post-COVID world and things, if you remember, really had slowed down. Like even I think in high tech, people were working from home. It The culture was a bit different. Now, thank God we've come past COVID. We're back to where we were before and maybe even then some. So I just find that the pace some days I blink, the day is done. I have no idea where the time went. And that can freak me out a little. Like it goes so fast. So something I've found that really helps me just to feel like there's still time left in the day. There's more to this. Boundaries, big buzzword. People talk about boundaries. We hear it a lot. It's my saving grace. When I am at work, I'm at work. I'm in it. When I come home, no Slack, no email. I don't have it on my phone. It's not even a temptation. Like work is work, home is home. And this like helps me to stay excited like about going to work. It keeps me energized because I have those boundaries. Like I know work is going to be work and that's great. That's what it should be. And home is going to be home and that's what it should be too. And I really think this is easier said than done, at least in what I've observed, that it's really hard to turn off when you come home and it's hard to not be checking your emails. But I just find personally, I need this. And so yeah, I believe in working hard, but I believe in working smart, and taking care of myself. Also the basics, eat well, sleep well, stay moving, and be grateful.
Yeah. Those are all great tips and I think very important, not just in the high tech world, but for all of us who work a little too hard and spend, a lot of time trying to build things. For sure. Yeah. It's really important to,
totally.
to remind yourself to kind of prioritize things, to create boundaries and separate yourself from them. These have been some really, really fantastic tips. I'm going to share some links under the video, but where can people follow you and see your work? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so currently best options are on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm always happy to connect with anybody, offer advice, just chat. My name on Facebook and LinkedIn is Becca Fox Regev. And stay tuned. I hope to have at some point a website go live with some of my works of writing, but stay tuned.
Yeah, I want to publicly encourage you to continue writing. I've seen your writing. I've seen your posts on Facebook.
Thank you.
I think it's really just fantastic. So I hope you'll do that. And if I can be of any help to help you get that website set up, reach out. I would definitely encourage that.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Everybody who joined and watched.
Thank you for having me. This has been a really long time coming.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm finally, we sat down, we got to do it. Everybody, thanks for watching till the end. You can check out a lot more on bluewhitefinance.com. And thanks for joining the show and see you next time.